4 seconds. Hey everybody, welcome to Peanut Butter and Triggered, and I am Scott, joined remotely by my man
Jace, what's up?
Hey everyone, Ben won't be here today. He lacks the ability to remember when we do podcasts, but that's okay because I got...
No, that's not necessarily true. He actually told me that he was wrist deep in VR porn.
Oh, there you go. The more you know.
Yeah. So I don't want to judge him.
No, I'm not going to judge him. I mean, do you? You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
But it's great everyone's here. Jay is telecommuting today because the weather's not great. I mean, as soon as I got home, it started really snowing. And if anyone knows anything about Portland, as soon as it starts snowing, everything becomes terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So we have a kind of an interesting topic. We've talked about a couple different things. A couple different times about cloud computing and VR and stuff, but I think I thought it'd be cool to have a in-depth conversation about VR this time. And specifically, I just turned myself up. I sound way better. Sorry. Specifically about how it's going to interact with 5G and different where it's going, I guess, and where we want to see it go. So I think it would be a cool conversation. So, like always, first up, we got a little news. We'll start with actually, let's do what are you watching, doing, playing? Let's do that first.
So I just finished True Detective, and boy, am I disappointed with the ending.
Really, you were hyped about that too.
Oh my god, the show is so good right up until the end.
That's always the worst. That's like Dexter.
Yeah, that's actually a really excellent example because I was super hyped on Dexter, and it just like the ending. Not that like it wasn't hard to understand. The ending just didn't make sense with the direction that they wanted to go.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel like it just fizzled and it just didn't go anywhere. There were a lot of loose ends that they didn't tie up either. So I just finished that. I'm definitely still watching 600-Pound Life.
Heck
yeah,
I
love that show.
You inspired me, by the way. Just not try to interrupt you, but we did the same. We watched an episode.
Oh yeah, I love it. And then the other thing that we're watching, or that I started watching today, I didn't realize it, but the 5th and final season of Broad City's actually been playing since like late January, I think. So I'm catching up on that.
I've never even heard of that.
Dude, Broad City is one of the funniest comedies that I've ever seen.
What's it on?
It's on Comedy Central. It's about these two girls that live in New York City and just their adventures. They're two comedians in real life that went through the Upright Citizens Brigade after dropping out of NYU. So they're really funny too.
That sounds interesting. What channel was it on again?
Comedy Central. It's
okay.
Super funny.
Huh. Well, that's cool.
Wow.
I have been watched 600-Pound Life, of course. I watched I did the first part, and the crazy thing is how long these are. These are like an hour and a half long episodes, which is like unreal. And we watched the first part of the 1 Ton Family, which I think is like season 6. And it's like these 3 people who are the sister is 800 pounds, the brother's like 600, and the other sister's like in that 550, 600 pound range. And it's just you're chronicling their life. So I watched that one, and then I also started watching the 2000s, which was Ben had recommended that to me. Which
the 2000s, I saw him once in the 90s or the 80s. There was an 80s one, right?
Yeah, and there's a 70s. I think there's one, maybe the 60s as far back as it goes. But the 2000s is one that you should really check out because I know we're close to the same age, and the 2000s is a lot of what we went through. I mean, we went through the 90s, but we were young. The 2000s is when we're actually old enough where we remembered where we were for these things, like TV shows. It talks about The Sopranos and talks about Breaking Bad and stuff. So definitely caters more towards me.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, and then 9/11 and all that fun stuff. Not fun stuff, I guess. But yeah, and then playing Final Fantasy VII on my PlayStation Classic.
Oh, shite.
Yeah.
How do you like that?
I got a wireless controller and hooked it up in my in my bedroom. I have a little like a small TV in there, and the wireless controller actually I feel like works better than the controller it came with. I feel like the D-pad's a little deeper, but it still feels like a PlayStation 1 controller, which I like for the experience. And then it's Final Fantasy VII. The materia system and everything's really fun. It's really good.
Nice.
And now we'll move into that news. I got a few little news articles, and then we have some news to talk about for what we're going to talk about today, which is VR. First up, this is kind of VR related. I think could be a cool VR idea. There's a new website called NoClip. It's a website that allows you to revisit your favorite levels. This one specifically Nintendo levels, no clipping, so flying around with no boundaries to look at the old worlds you used to tour as kids and all that kind of stuff. And the reason I bring up this one is because, like, imagine this in VR. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Like
I would have a blast.
Yeah, like imagine going to like Wind Waker or Mario 64 in VR.
Yeah. Which level would you visit in Mario 64?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would probably do the level that's the snow, that's like the mountain that you do the slide in with the giant penguin.
Okay. This is the one where you have to This is the one where you have to rescue that baby penguin.
Yep, exactly. Yep. And you slide down the big slide, and there's the secret entrance at one of the curves of the slide.
You get caught up by a breeze.
Yep, exactly. Which one would you do?
I would do one of the Bowser stages. I think like the very last one. That one was
where you spin them around and it like parts of it fall off, right?
Oh yeah, not the actual Bowser battle, but the stage
I
get to the battle. Those are super fun. Yeah,
for sure. Another piece of news that I feel like we should be inclined to talk a little bit about at least is Samsung announces its S10, S10 Plus, and S10e, as well as a $2,000 folding phone, which is the kind of the probably not in the long run won't be the big news for these phones. Like a lot of people won't own them. But at least for now, it's the big news.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's an interesting idea to have a tablet in your pocket at the same time. What do you think? I haven't talked to you about what your idea on the Samsung folding phone is.
I mean, it's in theory, it's kind of cool, but like, I just don't think that. I mean, I haven't seen it in person or anything. I just don't think that it's going to be compact enough, and I don't know. It just the whole folding screen doesn't feel like it's going to end up being something that looks nice over time.
I agree, and the Samsung folding phone, when they folded it a few times, it looked completely fine. But Huawei has also announced a folding phone, and the demo model they have, the crease looked terrible, like when they folded it out, and I was like, oh, yeah, like, how many times can you really fold this screen before it, like, starts looking terrible? Because if the end user experience is not exactly an actual tablet, it's a disappointment. It has to be a perfect tablet, otherwise you'll just carry a tablet if you need it.
Exactly. And then when you fold it up, it's like, did you ever watch Seinfeld?
Yeah.
Do you remember the episode where they find out that George still carries a wallet?
Yeah, and it's huge.
Yeah, and he puts like a receipt in there, and then it finally explodes.
Yeah, I remember that.
But when he folds it up, it like raises him on one side by like 6 inches or something like that, and then he has to put like a bunch of napkins on the other side to even himself out. That's what I feel like is going to happen, especially for people that wear their phones in their back pocket. Yeah,
it's definitely not a back pocket wearer, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be a niche market, but the thing about it is a niche market generally like $2,000. So let's, if you break this down, if you went out and you bought a S10, S10, 256 gig, what's that, $1,100 or $1,200? And then you went and bought a Tab S4, or didn't they announce an S5? I don't know if they announced the S5, maybe just the S4. You go and you buy a Tab S4, and you have one of the nicest styluses around, and you even get a keyboard case. You're looking at what, $600, $700, and it's
More than that.
How much are they?
The Tab S is like $700 by itself, and the keyboard case. You're saying the keyboard case comes with it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so the keyboard case is like another $100. So then you're like $800.
So you're in that same. I mean, either way, you're in that same price range. But the tablet you have is significantly nicer. You're talking about a really nice tablet. Although maybe I'm arguing the wrong thing and talking about. I mean, I'm comparing apples to oranges. You know.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? It should be interesting to see how well it performs, and if this is going to be like 4K and catch on, or if it's going to be like 3D and die out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things like all those people who bought those 3D TVs.
Yeah. My father-in-law still has one and still buys those 3D movies. He loves them, but he's like one of the few. I don't think you can get 3D in a TV at all anymore.
Right.
Damn.
Damn.
Which also 5G phones, they're talking about releasing 5G, which 5G to me in terms of the speed is not, the speed is not particularly interesting to me. The applications it opens is what's interesting to me with the speed, like cloud computing on the go, and VR on the go. Because right now the limitation with VR is it takes a lot of computing power.
Yeah.
And if, as I showed you, I have that shadow. If you had the ability to do VR anywhere, I think there could be a lot of really cool experiences.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's even more than just like games or entertainment for that sort of application too. So, I mean, the sky's the limit with that sort of technology.
Yeah, imagine like an escape room that was like a VR,
That'd be fun.
I know that like up in Seattle, they had a kind of like a VR shooter game but you carried a backpack, and in the backpack was the PC that ran the VR experience you were in. And
how heavy is the backpack?
It's pretty heavy. I don't know exact. It's not giantly, it's not massively heavy, but it's heavy enough to where it'd be noticeable. I mean, you do have a PC in your backpack, but it's a relatively toned down PC. I'm sure it's like a graphics card with RAM and like a really small hard drive. But it actually was this like room, if you can imagine like a big room with a bunch of obstacles and stuff in it. But as you moved through this VR world, if you touch the wall in VR, you're touching a wall in real life. So they had kind of programmed these VR experiences to one-to-one match your VR moves in real life, or I mean your moves in real life. Those, and
it was like real time. There was no lag.
Yeah.
Nothing like that.
Well, okay. I can't. They claimed there was no lag. I can't. I can't validate it, obviously. But imagine this, but only you're cloud computing. So we lose the rig, we lose the all that stuff, and you can kind of do it anywhere.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, and I don't know.
And then as the technology is more advanced, that backpack might not be as heavy anymore.
Yeah, well, literally, you just need like glass streaming. It'd be like watching a video,
Yeah.
Basically, watching a YouTube video is the processing power your phone or your device, whatever your VR headset would be doing.
Right.
Which obviously opens a whole bunch of things, because right now, even if you do like AR on your phone, it's hot like right quick. Or VR. If you do VR, like I'm sure you've done that Samsung VR experience thing. Your phone is hot like really quick, and it just blows through the battery. Those issues go away. Those are issues that I don't think processing on board you can't ever fix that issue, because you just have to use a lot of battery. And so processing somewhere else might be the way.
Yeah, that might be a good idea too.
But I think that's really cool. I mean, talking a little bit about something you sent me, a little other VR news. Maybe you want to go into this these working applications of VR and AR.
Yeah. So Microsoft has a piece of technology called the HoloLens and the HoloLens 2. There are a few different things that people are talking about, particularly with the technical applications of the HoloLens. So in the video that Microsoft has on their website, it's showing things like it teaches med students on a fake body, different vascular systems, different nerve systems, so they can actually see it like right in front of them and actually be able to interact with it. and it shows like a motorcycle mechanic or technician working on a virtual motorcycle. So those sorts of things are really cool. Like, and I can definitely see like civil engineers using them and stuff like that. Now, one thing that is controversial at this point is that a bunch of Microsoft employees are actively protesting the HoloLens because they went on to develop this like wonderful piece of technology. And by the way, these things are not cheap. They're like $3,500 if you want to use one.
Wow.
You know, they are actually really nice. They're sleek pieces of devices or pieces of technology, but they are spendy. So anyways, the Microsoft workers that they went on to develop these and create these, they're protesting Microsoft because Microsoft just signed like a $480 million contract to be able to use these in the battlefield and actually training like some tactical units of the military. Mm-hmm. And then this article that I just read showed like a U.S. Army sponsored video that shows how they would use it in the battlefield. And if you've ever played any first-person shooting game,
yeah,
that's exactly what it looks like.
Looks like a HUD,
like a heads-up display. Yeah, heads-up display with like full-on like GPS coordinates and waypoints and stuff, targets that are identified, and it's really scary because at what point does it start to further dehumanize some of these targets that, I don't know, maybe they might not be targets.
Sure. Yeah, that would be the scary part, the dehumanization. But I think that this is I'm not trying to argue with the idea that that this should always be allowed or that this should, right. But it's going this way no matter what we do. If you look at like the people who fly drones, they're literally playing a video game. They're completely disconnected, hundreds or thousands of miles away. It's very interesting. Well, I don't know about interesting, but it will be interesting seeing what happens with the future of warfare. Because you know me, I'm kind of into learning about this kind of stuff and technology on the battlefield. And this idea of a virtual reality or augmented reality setup has been around for quite some time. I think maybe in early 2010s, like 2010, 2011, there was a lot of talk of what they called the future soldier. That game, Ghost Recon Future Soldier, directly spawned out of this idea, and they did have basically a guy with a computer running, or some sort of computer running on him, with real-time maps where he can see where each and every one of his men are on the battlefield, the ability to aim around corners and such by looking down the sight of your gun with like a kind of like an augmented reality setup, so you don't even have to pop your head up to fire.
Yeah,
there's all sorts of crazy things they've been working on for a long time. So I guess my point is, I don't know if I understand not wanting to work on one of these projects, but I don't know how much the Microsoft employees disagreeing with it will actually slow the tide,
Yeah, and that's a good point. In any sort of futuristic piece of equipment that can be applied in several different like occupational settings, you just have to think that it's going to be applied in a military or warfare environment, especially something like this. It's cutting edge. But I could definitely understand a lot of these employees' perspectives on like, look, I don't want to like participate in making something that's used to kill people, and that's kind of like one of those things. It's like you don't really, you don't really get that opportunity to choose because whoever your CEO is going to make that decision for you.
And at the end of the day, no matter what tech job you're working in, you're going to be making something for the military. Like,
right.
Smartphones, all this stuff. If you're working on, I don't know, if you're working on drones, like even commercial drones, if you're working on engines, if you're working on anything, at the end of the day, there's a good chance it'll end up in the military's hands because we wage war with what we have, right?
Right.
But like I said, I also understand the opposition. Like I get not wanting to directly go towards these operations, but I'm also a believer that anything that makes our troops safer is a good thing. And if AR makes our troops safer, I mean I'm for it. But it also safer generally means a better ability to kill an enemy. You know.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right.
It's funny, this is an interesting story, but I always remember I used to work out with the military a few years ago. I actually got this job on Craigslist working directly as a op for the opposing force for the Army. And it was a summer gig. We'd work like anywhere from 12 to 18-hour shifts, and literally all we did was train with the military. And we were basically warm bodies when they came through a village or whatever. We would shoot at them with blanks, basically with laser tag. And I always remember this one time. It was pitch dark, and we were told to be as sneaky and scary as possible. They said use all your brain power to make these troops' lives as difficult as possible. You want to kill it, basically in the game, kill as many of them as you can in any way you can. And they said the reason is because when they get to real combat, that's the same thing that the enemies there will be doing. It's just it will be real. So the more training you get with it, the more training you can give these troops, and the smarter you are with how you approach them, the better.
Yeah.
And this one time I was on the backside of this wall, and this is off topic, but I was on the backside of this wall, and it was pitch dark in the middle of the desert, and I could hear them all around me. And I always remember this kid was from Oregon. Obviously, I was from Boise. I had my AK aiming one way. I was on the back of this wall. There's a corner on my right and a corner on my left. So I was on the back of basically what was a shipping container. And I knew that there were guys on both sides, but I didn't know which way to aim my gun. So I'd elected to aim to my right, thinking that hopefully the people would come around on the right first and not the left. Well, sure enough, a troop, a National Guardist came around the corner, and he had an M249, which is like a machine gun, a big machine gun. And this dude fired this thing with blanks within like no joke, like maybe 1.5 feet into my chest, like 6 times.
Yeah.
Luckily, he had a muzzle device, but the long and the short of why I bring up the story is he was like super sorry. He felt really bad. And I told him, I was like, listen, man, if that scared the shit out of me. Like, I literally almost shit my pants. But if you ever get into this situation again, do the same thing. Like, don't hesitate when you're there. Like, you did the right thing. Obviously, this is training, and you scared me. But at the end of the day, I was like, use those reflexes, because if this was in combat, that's what you would have needed to do. And so that's what that reminded me of. Like, at the end of the day, whatever makes them safer.
Yeah.
But then again, right, you're killing someone. You don't want to make that. You don't want to make that a video game or easy.
Right. That's a good point.
That was a roundabout way of saying I don't know if I agree or not.
Oh, with the whole augmented reality.
Yeah.
And warfare.
It's definitely. Go ahead.
You have to be able to use like whatever you have at your disposal, just because like what if there was some sort of weird like mistake and somebody ended up getting hurt in a simulation, like those sorts of things could happen, I'm assuming. But
yeah.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, another interesting, like I saw the idea of doing surgeries in VR or, working. I saw someone working like on a line, like a car line or something like that.
Right.
That's kind of interesting. If you have like, I don't know, for example, like underwater welding or something, or I don't know how unsafe underwater welding is, but I imagine it wouldn't be that safe, but I could be wrong. But a worker who works really high on a high rise or something like that, where their job is legitimately unsafe, this would be a good application of virtual reality, you know?
Yeah, most definitely.
And I truly believe this is directly stemming off. You know, it's really expensive to develop this stuff, and there's got to be someone buying it. And if the public's buying it, like they are with the Oculus or the Vive or the PlayStation VR, if they're funding this, then applications like that can actually happen. You know,
right?
So I don't know. I think it's interesting to think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then obviously it gets into other stuff too. Like, obviously there's going to be some sort of market in there for guys like Ben watching like VR porn and stuff.
Yeah.
Or like even when it comes to the movie industry, like what if a movie wants a completely immersive environment? So I mean, those are things that I can think of immediately off the top of my head that like I would love to be in a movie, but like obviously I don't want to ruin the movie.
Yeah, imagine.
So,
I always imagine, what if you go to the movie theater, and the movie theater, you go in almost to a personalized room. It's just an empty room, and you put on this VR, similar to what we talked about, backpack VR, whatever
right.
this comes out to, and then you're watching I don't know, Forrest Gump, or you're watching a murder mystery or something, and you're sitting here watching this, and you can watch either of the people talking, and you can watch their actions, you can watch things they do, which normally you would be looking through basically a peephole with the camera. That to me would be really a really interesting experience.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen a lot of the VR games that are out now?
I've seen some, but mostly like on Google Play. So like I have the Daydream View, and I'll play like some of the like whatchamacallit, like the zombie games, like where you have to like walk through different areas on a map and try to kill zombies and stuff. The NBA also has certain games that are shot in VR, so you can like
that's cool,
get a close up view of everything. So those sorts of things, I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, 100%. I think that there's a lot of different games you could do. Pretty much any game would be cool in VR. I know they have there's a lot of shooting games. That seems to be the thing right now. There's a game called Onward that is literally, I mean, if you want to like peek around a corner while laying down, you literally stand in the room and you lay on the ground and peek out of the corner. So it almost really connects you really closely to, I guess, to, that world.
Yeah.
I guess kind of for the next segment, I kind of wanted to talk about with you, kind of linked to VR, and I can start if you need time to think. Try to think of a world or a game that's your. What would you say is? Try to think of what's your favorite gaming area or gaming, world.
Setting.
Yeah, setting. Well, it's not setting specifically, but area in general. So, for example, like we were talking about before the podcast, I think Mario. Which world would you play in?
Yeah.
Mine. There's a lot of really cool games. Like, I mean, The Last of Us. It'd be cool to walk around in some of those areas. But have you played Final Fantasy VII at all?
As a kid, but I don't really remember much of that.
So Final Fantasy VII is it's an interesting. The story is basically this big company. It's almost like an electricity company is how to explain it, but it's an electricity company that basically siphons the lifeblood of a planet and sells it back to its people, and slowly kills the planet. You play as a group of what they call terrorists who, I don't know. They're trying to bring down this giant electric company, basically. It's kind of a grim game, but there's one part I'll always remember, and it's called the Golden Saucer. The Golden Saucer is like a theme park where there's like some arcades, there's racing, and then also there's a haunted mansion that is a hotel. And I always thought it would be cool to go into that haunted mansion that's a hotel.
Mm.
So I don't know. There's like a ton of different places you could go. Do you have any ideas on places you might go?
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of the ones that I would like to, because I'm kind of like a horror junkie.
Yeah.
I would really thoroughly enjoy like a Alien Isolation game in VR, because I think that would be like perfect for a VR setting.
Yeah.
Like Dead Space, those sorts of things. Like just something that's like that cranks up like the feeling of isolation and kind of dread. That would be super scary for me to even think about. But I would also be like really into playing those sorts of games.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then you got like sports games too that are always fun, like bowling, boxing, and tennis. Those sorts of games. I think those would be rad too.
Yeah, just like regular sports games.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that'd be super cool. So kind of for the next segment, I would like to talk about is upcoming games and what actually had originally made me want to talk about VR is there are a couple up and coming games. One specifically that looks really interesting, which I just saw because I just got my Game Informer, which I'd never even heard of. The first game that looks really interesting was on the cover of Game Informer. Have you ever heard of The Outer Worlds?
No, I have not.
So, The Outer Worlds is a game made by Obsidian. Obsidian made Fallout New Vegas, as well as Fallout 1 and Fallout 2.
Yeah.
And this game looks exactly like Fallout, but only, like, good. So, very kind of campy, like the 50s. Right. Graphics look much better. They don't look like they're on that kind of dated Fallout engine. Right. They have a lot of really cool guns. The thing that they seem to be pushing a lot more that Fallout didn't really do as much, it did in a way, but it's a choose your own adventure where the world's more affected by your actions, which looks really cool. You have a ship. This ship acts as your home base, and this is where your people go, and you fly it around and stuff. This is talking about games we're kind of looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to this one. Are you ready to get back into Fallout? Even though 76, or not Fallout, but a Fallout-like game. Now that Fallout 76 kind of died or is dead.
I'm a little weary. I don't know if I actually would want to, with how bad everything's gone with Fallout. Because I remember before Fallout even came out, you and I were like, I don't know how. What could go wrong with this game? This is one of the most anticipated games that we've heard of in late 2018, early 2019. And now it's just there's so many different things that they've done wrong.
Oh, it's truly terrible. And the big thing that they had, just rag on Fallout again for a second here, they heavily advertised that they will not do paid DLC for content, that it will all be cosmetics, and that you can't pay to win, and of course that's changed now.
Right.
They've released stat bonus items that you can only purchase. But that game is kind of the cover game, and I don't know a lot about it. This is my first time reading about it, and I'm still reading about it. That looks kind of cool. Another game that looks cool that I don't know if you're into, I feel like we've talked about it before, but I don't remember, is the Division 2.
Yeah, we have talked about it briefly, but with the way that Division 1 was handled, I'll definitely wait to see if it's going to be good. Mainly because, what if it turns out to be a piece of shit, and then they end up fixing it? I want to be there for when they fix it, if anything.
You want to be on the back half, not the front half, because it's easy to play a game like that and just get burnt out. And the end product's really good, but you are already kind of burnt by the first part, and you never go back and touch it.
Right.
So that's another big game that's coming, I think, next month. And graphics-wise, it looks pretty decent. I played it a few times now. I played it at PAX, and then I've also played it at I played the beta recently, relatively recently. And it looks pretty cool. It plays pretty cool, but the one kind of thing that seems consistent is it's the Division 1 basically. So it's not a whole lot different,
Yeah. The other problem I have with a lot of these games too is that just organically they've become overhyped, just out of the box, with any of the previews or trailers that we have, because with so many of these games now coming to fruition, they've become underwhelming.
Yeah, like the Anthem Anthem. Yep. I said, that game didn't look great, and look at the reviews.
And man, you were right. You were dead on. You might as well be a fortune teller.
Yeah, like
Ben and I were like waiting for it to be good.
and I like I said, it looked like Destiny, where you were going to be stuck in the same grind at the beginning. It would be cool, but a little while in, it would be kind of dumb, and that's consistent. The consistent complaint is there's no end game.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Terrible.
it has like anywhere from a 40 to 60, depending on which which news outlet you go to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next game is actually a VR exclusive, and this is actually what prompted me to talk a little bit about VR and where it's going. As we kind of get, because right now VR is mostly just it's experiences. It's not a full-fledged game. It's an experience you have that isn't like long. I mean, they have games like Skyrim and stuff, but those games were not VR at first,
Yeah.
This game is called Next to Godliness. Again, I'd never heard anything about this until I got this magazine and started reading up about it. It looks really cool. It looks like a proper Skyrim in VR. Really good graphics. A lot of the times, from what I could tell, when you play a VR game, it kind of looks wonky. You have like these floating hands, and I don't know, it's kind of weird. This game looks really, really good, and it's all Norse mythology.
Yeah, I can see that. That looks nuts, dude.
Are you looking at it now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I feel like you showed us this not too long ago.
Really? I don't remember this game at all.
You showed it when I was still working with you, I thought. Or what was that other one?
There's another one that's like about sorcerers, I think.
Yeah, never mind. This looks similar. The graphics are way better than what you showed me on the other game. It's still, yeah, that looks interesting.
Yeah, definitely looks. I mean, it looks like it could be promising. You run errands for Loki and stuff like that. So if you like Norse mythology, it's definitely right up your alley.
Yeah. Wow.
There are a couple more games coming out. We can briefly touch on them individually. The Devil May Cry 5 comes out in March. I don't know if you're interested in that at all.
No. I tried to play a couple of Devil May Cry games because Mr. Lonely was into them.
Mm-hmm, Kevin.
And I couldn't get into them. It was way too weird.
Do you know the interesting story behind Devil May Cry?
No.
Devil May Cry is actually Resident Evil 4.
What?
When they were developing Resident Evil 4, they were wanting to take the franchise in a different direction. Devil May Cry is actually what they got, and after playing around with it, they thought, this is not Resident Evil. Like, it doesn't fit in the Resident Evil lore, and rather than throwing the game out, they actually went on and developed Devil May Cry, and then restarted development on Resident Evil 4.
Huh.
Yeah, so a little bit of fun facts there. Next month, we got Sekiro. That's the 22nd.
Ben's gonna be stoked on that.
He's been talking about it a lot, and they've released some new trailers and stuff with like some of the bosses, which should be really cool. I think it'll be fun to play. Yeah.
I'm still really stoked on the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. That one's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. No, for sure. I don't care. Like, I'm just ready for a really good Jedi game. Yeah, I can't wait for that. So the next one we have is actually closer to your heart. We got Mortal Kombat 11.
Yeah, I'm stoked on that. I'm gonna get it for my PlayStation and my Switch.
Well, look at you go.
I hope it's gonna be really good because I don't want to have to buy 2 games if it's gonna suck.
I don't blame you.
Take the plunge. I haven't been disappointed by a Mortal Kombat game in a very long time. So I don't anticipate it being a piece of shit, but there are plenty of new aspects to the game, and I'm very, very worried about that part. But other than that, it seems like it's going to be the same Mortal Kombat that I know and love.
Graphically, it looks super good.
Yeah.
Days Gone on April 26th.
Dude, here's one game that I'm kind of intrigued by. It's called Beyond Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey. It's basically a third-person survival game,
Mm-hmm.
but basically you're playing as like ancestors of humankind, essentially. So you have to try to advance your species as long as you can, and from the looks of it, it's coming out on all major platforms, including PC. It looks weird. It looks interesting, and your only job is to advance your human race as far as you can.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it looks like
what
one of those games that you have to grind on, though.
You said it was a third person?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that sounds really, really. Those kind of things where they're actually changing things looks really cool. Rage 2. That looks cool. There's a couple other ones in here, like this one specifically. It's called Outer Wilds. I'd never heard anything about this, but I'll read this tiny little excerpt. It says, again, this is from Game Informer, so I don't want to like copyright on them or whatever.
Right.
It's for Xbox One and PC, but it says, Outer Wilds is an all-exploring, big hand-crafted solar system, but a Majora's Mask-like conceit gives you a unique flair. Instead of dying and restarting when you do something like crash your ship or fly a little too close to the sun, you are sent back in time with the knowledge you gained before you met your demise. Our hands-on time has left us impressed with the scale of the worlds and made us excited to explore to explore its loop of exploring, dying, going back in time, and launching our ship all over again. So, I don't know, that sounds like a cool way to kind of explain off you dying.
Yeah, kind of. The only thing that would worry me about that is like what makes it challenging then.
Well, I get that. I don't know if there's other challenges, and that's basically all I've heard about it. But maybe it's not challenging, and maybe that's a negative thing.
Yeah.
Dying Light 2.
Yeah, I really want that to be good too, because I really enjoyed the first one.
Yeah, I still have your copy, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, do you really?
On Xbox, yeah.
Nice.
I've had it for like 2 years now, I think.
Nice.
I
think I have like various games just loaned out, and I haven't come back and collected.
I ended up with 2, The Last of Us, and I don't know. I have no idea whose I have. I know I have one of mine, but
yeah, mine I definitely don't have anymore. I gave that away to I think I gave to Mr. Lonely.
Well, I'll let you have this one if no one claims it.
That's fine. I'm all right.
Psychonauts 2, which did you ever play Psychonauts 1?
No, I didn't. I know that definitely has its fair share of like cult fanatics. I never played it, and I don't really plan on playing Psychonauts 2.
I don't blame you. It's kind of a niche game.
Yeah.
Definitely an interesting. You basically play as this kid who is. It's very quirky, but you play as this kid who goes to a school that's made specifically for people who are psychic. Your ventures are into people's heads and stuff. The way that you save, for example, is you hold up a piece of bacon and there's a guy living in your head who pops out, and that's how you save. So it's just really kind of a silly game, but really well received. It was on PS2, and so some people are really excited, like you said.
Yeah. Definitely cult classic.
Definitely a cult classic, and the game is fun, but it's been a long, long time since I played it. Another game that I feel like we should talk about, at least just for a second, is Skater XL.
I didn't hear about that.
That's that skating game that they announced that looks like Skate at E3. You remember?
Oh, and they originally called it Session.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it is. Maybe this is separate.
Yeah.
Well, this looks exactly like Skate. It's just it's called Skater XL.
It's hard not to, though.
Yeah, I mean it's just a skating game.
Yeah.
But that's there's a
the graphics don't look that good though on Skater XL.
Right?
Like,
they look a little bland.
Pretty cheesy.
Yeah.
It's really choppy, really bland.
I haven't seen any gameplay. I just saw the screenshots.
Oh yeah, no, dude, it looks pretty harsh.
To be honest with you, when I saw that, I thought it was Session. But you saying it's Session, that makes sense. Yeah.
I had my hopes up for Session also, and a lot of the same criticism that I have for Skater XL, a lot of people have for Session.
Just generic.
It's hard to make a good skating game now and have it live up to its own potential because like we are expecting a beautiful game, we are expecting smooth gameplay and actual realistic physics, but without making it impossible to play.
Yeah, for sure.
So
you got to still be good at skating in the game.
Yeah, and how fun is a game going to be when one of the hardest things to do on earth is skateboarding.
Yeah,
you got to be able to excel at. So I think a lot of people are just kind of, I guess, throwing their hands up and saying, well, at this point, to have a skateboarding video game is next to impossible.
Yeah, I can roll with that too. One of the things that made skating games so iconic was there was a super solid name behind it in Tony Hawk, and then people had their favorite like Bob Burnquist, and all these people. I don't feel like those names are in. There's not as big names anymore.
Right. Well, if you follow the scene, there are
for sure. But like I didn't follow the scene at all at the time. But I was like, yeah, Tony Hawk,
Right. Well, and then the other thing too, like with the later games, you could like build your own skater. That was really cool.
Yeah, or play as Darth Maul.
Yeah, that was awesome too.
Which reminds me, have you seen Solo?
I did not watch it. I watched the very last scene.
Oh, we might have talked about this already.
Right.
Yeah, Darth Maul, shout out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there's some cool games coming. Now, all those games I named, none of them are the super heavy hitters. Like,
right.
There's no Grand Theft Autos, on the horizon. There's nothing like giant. We've got Red Dead. We've got God of War. We've got all these really big games that everyone was really excited about are now out. Resident Evil 2 is another one of those. So kind of at least on my radar, the video games are kind of open right now in terms of new video games and video games that are kind of big releases.
Yeah.
So anyway, do you have any final parting thoughts?
One thing, going back to VR, I think that we didn't really talk too much about was how VR and AR has kind of weaseled its way into entertainment like movies and TV. One series that I know that actually heavily relies on it and has done a very good job in like describing how and showing how it could be good and bad is Black Mirror. Like half of the anthology is about some sort of VR, whether it was San Junipero, where that's kind of everybody's afterlife. So they have their consciousness uploaded into like an oasis. And then you also have the episode Playtest, where some guy that was getting ready to play a massively in-depth virtual reality ends up. Well, I guess I won't spoil it, but it became too real. So, and I think you were talking about Ready Player One, being one of those movies that kind of shows what we hope virtual reality could end up being. Yeah, so, well,
I guess it depends on who you are in terms of hoping. I know you said you have not seen Ready Player One, but in Ready Player One, basically, there's this guy who invents VR, a VR world called the Oasis. In this Oasis, you can do everything. You can work, you can play, you can make any world, you can earn money, and the money in game is actually worth, like in some cases, more money than real currency. You can order pizza or order gear with in-game money, like real life, for real life. You can pay your rent in in-game currency. Many people go to work in-game. If you're an accountant or you can be a stripper even. You actually, you can go literally. It's basically real life, but only it's a computer. They have these. They call it their haptic rigs, and they're these. Imagine literally an arm that goes around your waist and connects to your ceiling. So when you're flying, it literally picks you up. When you get shot, it's like you get punched because they have these suits that are supposed to mimic. They're supposed to make you feel what's going on.
Show you the impact
Yep.
where you're hit.
Exactly, and in this world, it's interesting because I think his name is James Halliday, the guy who invented it. He gives it to everyone for free. He wants Actually, I take that back. It's not free. It costs $0.25, just like an arcade machine. So every single time you start up a profile, you pay $0.25, like Ready Player One, $0.25.
Right.
But that idea, where basically the whole world is in VR, that would be an interesting end game,
Yeah.
But
I think the whole idea could be fun, but one of the other things that kind of captured my attention was the fact that people go to work on here.
Yeah.
And how oftentimes it could actually be more valuable for the in-game currency than real-life currency. I just thought of that part in The Office where Dwight was playing Second Life, and the only difference between his real life and his Second Life is that he could fly.
Yeah, he's like, I don't play Second Life to get away from my first life. I just love my first life so much, I had to make a second one.
Yeah,
he's like,
it's kind of funny.
He's like, I actually in the game I play as a assistant to the regional manager at a struggling local paper company, and the only difference is I can fly.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
a really great one. Well, who you got for shout outs, boss?
I want to give a shout out to Mr. Lonely, Kevin, especially for the dope banners. He really came through with that one. That was cool.
Yeah, it's hanging up behind me now.
Right on. I want to shout out my sister Patricia, my girlfriend Katie, Javad.
Shout out Javad.
And that's it. Oh, and Ben's mom. I know she's listening.
Shout out Don Marie.
What up?
Shout out Jacob, Kat, Linda, and Robbie. Thank you for your gracious Patreon donations to us. I've used them to start soundproofing my room, hopefully to increase the quality of my sound, or of our sound in at least my little home studio. Nice. And also we've purchased a camera that you've seen in the live streams. So yeah, I think that those really go to as well as of course paying for our hosting fees. Those go to kind of pay for the show, and it makes it easier for us for sure.
Yeah. So thanks everybody.
All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for. I hope our sound quality is pretty decent, because I think it sounds great. But either way, if you live in the Portland area, I guess it's snowing pretty hard right now, according to what I'm hearing. So drive safe and all that other
careful.
stuff. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and have a terrific day.
Later.